Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We provide fan-oriented and analytic discussions on a variety of animated shows, movies, and anime, currently featuring Steven Universe, Miraculous Ladybug, and Archer. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Mel Moyer.
Hello.
Today, Mel and I will be discussing the Season 7 premiere of Archer, entitled The Figgis Agency. This is our first time covering Archer, as it's the first time new episodes have been airing since we started this podcast. As I said in the beginning, we're a general animation podcast covering a variety of animated shows, movies, ranging from family-friendly to, Archer, the opposite. And you can find out more about us at overlyanimated.com, or you can search for the Overly Animated Podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcatcher. Unlike most of our content, our Archer discussions will be not appropriate for younger audiences, as is the show we are discussing. It was the same thing when we discussed Rick and Morty, Moonbeam City. So yeah, Mel, free to curse and discuss the inappropriate jokes that are just made on Archer. So
Great.
Yeah, that's great. Let's get into Archer, and I'm curious what your perception of the status of the show is heading into season 7. That's a very high number, and
Yeah.
I think most shows that are in season 7, not saying this applies to Archer, people will be like, "Oh, it's past its prime." Like, I think pretty universally, almost every show. Maybe like not The Simpsons or something, right? Maybe I don't remember where The Simpsons peaked, but so. I don't know. What did you think of Archer heading into season 7? What did you generally think of season 6? And what do you think, like, your perception of the show is?
I mean, I do think it's tough to say without seeing more of the season. I do think its prime was more like seasons 3 and 4. I think it started to get a little messy after that. And it's interesting because they had to, they had the Vice season and that stuff, and they had to move away from ISIS last season for obvious reasons. Like, they're not doing that anymore. So I don't know. I mean, I think it's one of those shows that it's difficult to say, is it past its prime, because it's anchored so much in like the jokes and the ensemble cast that even if the plot of the season is kind of wonky or not as well put together, it's still an enjoyable show. But it also depends on what you think Archer should be. Just, a lot, it's like a lot of reviews refer to it as kind of like a mature, like, get smart and that sort of thing for millennial generation and that sort of thing. But it just depends. I mean, if you see it as like an adult animated show like Family Guy or Simpsons or something like that, then I think there doesn't really need to be too much of a prime for it. But if you see it as more of like an adult comedy espionage show, then yeah, I think it's probably past the point where it was at its best. I wasn't a super duper fan of last season, but like I said, I mean, seasons like 1 through 4 were top for me.
That's interesting, comparing it to like a Family Guy, in that, it's just going to go on, and it's like
and on and on and
yeah,
on.
it's like, is it? I think most people see Archer kind of not as that, as like a plot-oriented show, but at the same time, they just keep rebooting the premise, so it kind of is, is just the same thing, and like we do get continuous plots, but. And
I mean, they do, like, how they started this season. Like, they do find ways to start the seasons that are like that make them interesting and make them more than just raunchy humor show like Family Guy, like a show that will go on forever. Like, they're conscious of the fact that they're creating a narrative, so it's interesting.
And there are continuous plot lines. I mean, we got a mention of Archer and Lana's baby, which I completely forgot about.
I keep wanting to call it aubergine, like an eggplant.
Yeah,
like constantly. That's not its name.
I wonder how they're going to handle the baby, because they just briefly got mentioned as like, oh yeah, that thing exists, right?
That thing exists somewhere.
But overall, like, do you think the show's still funny?
Basically? Yeah, no, I still find it pretty funny. And I think a lot of that is H. John Benjamin's delivery of like every single line.
For sure. How do you compare it to like a Family Guy, which you still watch, right?
I do still watch Family Guy.
Archer funnier now than Family Guy is now?
I would argue. See, I'm actually really into American Dad right now too. Actually, 200th episode just aired this week, which is like kind of Family Guy humor-esque, but a little bit more intelligent. I find Archer. It sounds like a cop out to say, oh, they're funny in different ways, but I mean, Family Guy, a lot of the jokes at this point rely on like people who have watched the show for so long um, will get certain motifs with like Stewie's character, Brian's character, that sort of thing, and Archer's that way too. Even like with the constantly saying like, "Oh, are we still doing phrasing?" and that sort of thing. But I think Archer is just perpetually funny in newer ways, like just because its humor is less based on vignettes and that sort of thing, and more on like one-liners. And the delivery is just like John Benjamin is hysterical in the way he delivers things. But it still, again, utilizes like reoccurring jokes that have been here since like season 3, and somehow they still keep popping up. It, so yeah, I guess I would say Archer's probably funnier
Yeah, I mean,
if I were to boil that down.
yeah, I think there's a general discourse surrounding the show that it's like a lot of people are like, oh, it's not that funny anymore, and I might even stop watching it. I think so. I mean, obviously, people are listening to this haven't stopped watching it, right? But I don't know. A
If
lot of
we're
my
convincing them not to.
maybe a lot of my friends who like were pretty big on the show are like, I don't really care anymore, and maybe they continue, maybe they don't. I mean, I think Archer was definitely incredible in towards season 2. I don't know when the peak was, seasons 2, 3, maybe. I don't remember. But I'm here to argue Archer is still funny, and it is still a legitimate presence on television. I think that the constant rebooting of the premise is like a good idea, because it's important to keep some parts of the show fresh when we're gonna definitely stay with our characters, and like everything surrounding them, even though we're kind of changing circumstances with like the baby and stuff like that. Because I think that the characters are really all that matters, and it's pretty obvious at this point. We're just trashing the secret agent type idea here in favor of private investigators, and I don't think it's like particularly important, which is kind of funny. But
it's very comic booky in that way, where like every season is just like a different arc in that way.
which is only a recent development. Season
Yeah.
5 when they did the Archer Vice thing,
Yeah.
and since then, which I feel like
Which was so strange when you first when it first happened, when you were first watching Archer Vice. It was odd, but it ended up working.
I think it was okay. Actually, I think last season was pretty good. I don't remember a lot of it. I remember liking the season finale, which seems to have no consequences, but I don't really remember basically anything. So, I think I did like last season, and let's. So I think the show's still funny. I think it's like a legitimate presence on TV. Um, I think Adam Reed's still incredible. Like he's always writes the show very well, and I think he's another show in development now at FX. So that's interesting to see where this goes. But let's talk now about
Tenzin.
the Figgis Agency. J.K. Simmons making an appearance in the beginning. What did you think of the Figgis Agency this episode as a premiere to season 7?
In the middle of watching it, I actually like didn't like it that much. I thought it was kind of yeah. And then towards the end, like into the third act, I liked it better, and I liked the ending as well, and like the kind of like twist ending there. Um, Overall, I think it was okay. I don't think it was as bombastic as like the opening to season 5. So I thought it was basically just average, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so it drew you back in towards the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. I feel like at this point, Archer's totally uh, about whether you find lines to latch on to that are just like you think are hilarious, and it's arbitrary to a certain extent. But it's like
California is assholes was pretty funny.
there's always these super memorable ones, and it's like, did the episode have it? And I don't know. For me, I was not super into this one. A little bit disappointed. I think a lot of it, honestly, I think a lot of Archer is mood dependent watching at this point, because it's just like how much you connect to the jokes, which you could make a larger commentary on how that's like all comedy watching on television. But I don't know. I didn't think anything was. I wrote down a lot of the lines here for the podcast. I don't think there are any particularly super funny moments. There are a few that are notable, I think, for sure. But I also overall felt like the episode was shoehorning in story at many points, and it was just very noticeable for me. So I don't know. It didn't feel natural. I appreciate that we're beginning like a larger arc here, so I'm fine with how this functions. And if we're setting up for better things to come, then that's absolutely fine. But I don't know. I was a little bit disappointed.
Well, and it's one of those things. If it's in its seventh season, I think they can get away, and they know that they can get away with having just kind of average or subpar season openers, because at this point, you're either watching it or you're not, and you either like it or you don't. So they don't really have to convince anyone with this, so that they can get away with being like, oh well, we'll set up the little bit of the arc, little bit of the plot, where we need it, and then I suppose focus on jokes.
I feel like we had a lot of great potential here. We had some great concepts that weren't really fully executed.
Mm-hmm.
In particularly, I felt at one point that they were really going to start a great running gag of Archer needing to like file his detective work hours
Oh
with
yeah.
Cyril, and we called back to it once. He's like, "Can I put this as 15 minutes?" And he's like, "No, 15 minutes is the smallest manageable
Increment.
increment." Yeah, I thought that was like good, and I thought it's like okay if we keep having Archer like put in his time with Zero. Like I think that's the type of thing that I remember from the show. And I thought that was like an interesting concept, but at the same time I don't know if they did anything with it. I thought like the rim shot gay porn name like I don't know. Like when I was watching that opening scene, this is the problem with shows in seventh season. I was like, okay, this is like Adam Reed dialogue. This is like we're trying to introduce a recurring like gag here with the rim shot, and it's like clever wordplay, and it's gonna have multiple meanings. And I was like in my head, I was like analyzing that opening, the monologue or the dialogue, I guess, between these two new characters, rather than like laughing at it. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if that's a function of it wasn't as funny as old things, or if it's like the show is too established at this point, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking over the outline, like what's like really stands out here. Um, there's one I don't know, maybe my favorite moment, and this speaks to Cheryl, Carol, etc. Probably my favorite character, who only really had one thing to do in the episode, but the great sequence with like safe to say he doesn't eat shellfish when talking
Oh
about
yeah.
the obviously Jewish divorce
Shapiro.
attorney. Yeah, Alan Shapiro, and and she's like, "Ew, he's Jewish." Yeah, it was such a classic show.
I liked when then they use this in the promos for the episode when he was like get on it or something like that. She's like great, and she was like, how would someone go about being on it? Like I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, that's another classic. I don't know. I love this exchange because it's like Cheryl being like completely oblivious and then just completely offensive in her response anyway. Like doesn't mean he's Jewish. Ew, he's Jewish. Yeah, that was pretty great. Yeah, I don't know. I just like we had like Cheryl doing like two things. We had like a Krieger scene, but I don't know. I didn't really take anything away
I
from the
was
Krieger
trying
scene.
the entire scene to figure out if he was naked underneath of his apron. I thought that they were going to make a big deal about the fact that he was like not wearing anything under his apron, but
That's
nobody commented on it.
that's probably a good way to watch that scene. Should go back to that.
Yeah.
And then like I don't know, like did Pam do anything? Like uh
She was loading crap into the car.
yeah.
That was about it. Yeah, because she was supposed to do the research, and then there was some kind of joke bit there. But my favorite Pam thing, though, it was like all the way back in season 2 or 3 when they like are moving stuff out of the office. I forget why. And she's carrying the toilet, and she's like, "Oh, why do I have to carry the toilet?" Mallory's like, "You know why." It's still one of my favorite things from the show.
Yeah, we could just recount our favorite Archer lines. Yeah, that'll
Um,
be a good podcast. Yeah. Yeah, Ray. I feel like Ray didn't have a lot to do, and there's this one moment where that really turned me off from what was happening when, at the end, Ray starts like running off with Lana. I think right,
cyborg
and
running,
then
yeah.
Archer's like, I guess cyborgs are fast, and that line just super annoys me because it's like okay you need to remind the audience that Ray is a cyborg now, and we're gonna like make the fact that he is a cyborg into a joke even when it's just like a relevant plot point in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to make the refresher for the audience into like a punchline kind of irritated me a lot.
I mean, I guess my biggest thing at the end was like they tried to make it seem like there was consequences, but then there weren't consequences because he
So
had Ray take off with Lana, and he was like, "All right," and then had a bunch of grenades thrown at him, and then it cut to commercial, and they were back, and he just was in a neck brace and
yes.
pouting.
So yeah, a little bit of a misdirect there because in the beginning of the episode we see Archer dead, right?
Hmm.
Which of course is not going to be true. But
Yeah,
what do we think of this framing device to begin the season? Two new characters, one voiced by J.K. Simmons, the greats, talking about rim shots, and then we see
he is
Archer
an
dead.
Oscar-winning person.
He isn't. Yeah, he's an Oscar-winning, Oscar-winning actor giving gay
Dialogue about
porn
rim
names. Yeah,
shots.
it's pretty great. And and then we see Archer dead, and it's like 6 months earlier, right? And so
Yeah,
now we're gonna have to go through the season to see what led up to that point.
yeah.
What do you think of that
Um,
as a narrative device?
it's not new by
Yeah,
any means. It's very Breaking Bad-esque. That's like how the second season of Breaking Bad started. Um, but also even then it wasn't new when Breaking Bad did it.
the opposite end of
Um,
the spectrum. Teen Wolf has been doing this like every season.
yeah. So I mean I don't mind it. Um, and it keeps it interesting at least. Um, yeah, that's about all I got
What
for
do you?
that. I
What
mean,
was your reaction to seeing Archer dead? Did you have like any sort of reaction to that?
not really because I feel like that's exactly the type of thing you'd see though, like at any given point, just like Archer dead. Because it's like, oh, Archer's dead. It's like he's not really dead. Like,
Yeah, it's like obviously that's not what's happening, right? That's
yeah,
skepticism. If they actually did kill off Archer, then like now we're talking like actual consequences and stuff.
yeah.
But like obviously you can't do that. I don't know if there's a show more dependent on on a
No,
character.
you need H. John Benjamin
Yeah, for
in
sure.
that show.
Yeah. Um, let's talk about the premise. Just this new. I mean, we kind of dismissed it in the beginning. It's like, oh, it doesn't really matter what they're doing, but we're changing concepts. They're private investigators, and we're moving to LA too.
Yes.
A big departure from the show. Did you see any like consequences of that in the shows and in this first episode?
Um, not really. I mean, they complained about it a lot, but
Valerie complained about it. Yeah.
um, I mean, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they do anything with the fact that they're in LA now. Um, but I don't. I mean, with the exception of it being okay, private investigating now instead of like CIA, like international stuff, I don't see it being hugely different. I mean, even the building they're in kind of looks the same as the other one, just in LA. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just gonna be played as the butt of jokes, kind of like with Mallory continuing to complain about it, and like Archer saying he's still on East Coast time when he was drinking at 9 a.m. So,
It's 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm still on Eastern time. It's lunchtime there. Yeah, it's pretty good. Um, yeah, there wasn't much. Yeah, I don't think it had much of an effect. It was just kind of an excuse to bring in like the Hollywood element into it so far. But I assume we'll see more of an effect as we go.
mhm.
I don't know. Did we ever think Archer was pretty dependent on New York? I don't know. We aren't even there. Parts
No,
of.
because most of the time we're not there. We're off doing other stuff. I think and I mean the only thing that really stands out from the old location was like the laundromat in the basement. Um, that's about it. I mean, it's not a very location dependent show. Um, even for I guess when they're out doing espionage things. I mean, that was never a big deal for me. And then when they were moving around during Archer Vice, like, I mean, yeah, it was a weird concept to get used to, but I don't think location's a huge deal in this show.
How about the concept, this new premise in terms of like giving Cyril power?
I hate Cyril. I just want to
Do you
like
like personally hate him, or do you think he's a
I
bad
personally
character?
hate him. I hate his character. Well, no, I don't hate his character. His character's fine. Like him as a person, I don't like.
Why don't you like
Like
him as a
I
person?
don't know. I just don't. I've never liked him. I don't know why. He bugs the
Interesting.
shit out of me. But
Wow. He
yeah. I
must be
mean,
Ar-
but
must
that
be
being
Archer then.
um,
I actually think that's a really bad character. Like I really like the
what
premise.
Archer or Zero?
No, obviously not Archer. Archer's great.
Oh,
Like
Cyril.
Cyril. I like the premise because like it gives Cyril new life and gives him like great new interactions with Archer.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they've just had nothing to do with Cyril the past few
Yeah, I
seasons.
mean that's the thing is like I don't mind it because it's like oh like I like hating Cyril like I'm okay with hating Cyril so it's interesting I like seeing his buttons getting pushed
Really, in the
so
Archer and Cyril interactions, you hate Cyril. Really, that's interesting.
um but
This is pretty telling.
yeah I feel like he serves no purpose outside of like when they occasionally bring him in for like stuff with Lana and then toss him out again when they don't need him for that anymore. Like that was the whole point and premise of his character. Like he was introduced in the first season as like Lana's boyfriend after she broke up with Archer, and then since then he hasn't done anything except
Yeah,
for the seasons where they got back together for a hot second. So
it's totally a character that's like outlived its premise, right? Which is a
yeah,
lot of characters, but
yeah,
I don't know. I like this. I like this. I like giving Archer. I really hope they continue Archer just needing his like community service
clocking his
hours.
hours.
Yeah, I think that's a good concept. So I don't know. I feel like maybe a strong Cyril episode, neutral Archer. What do you think, Lana, in this episode?
She didn't have much to do with it. They would try. I guess I didn't even realize until the end that I guess she was supposed to be jealous because he grabbed her and said like, "Oh, you have nothing to worry about with I forget what's her first name, something Dean. It's in the Veronica
Like
Dean."
it, you know?
But I didn't, pick up on that at all. But I don't know. She didn't have much to do in this episode. They had the funny joke about her having a weave, but that's about it.
Did not like Archer grabbing, like putting his hand over Lana's mouth and just like continuing to do that.
Yeah.
Not a fan of that. Like on a personal level.
Mm.
What else we got here? So I don't know. I think Pam and Cheryl were underutilized. I think Krieger was like, there's one Krieger scene, and it was just
That's all we need.
I don't think it was very funny. No, I agree. Like I actually think Krieger's a character you should minimally have. Like I think making him a main part of the cast is risky because he's just such a memorable character for the few scenes he's in. But I don't know. I just didn't really connect with any of the material in that Krieger scene.
Yeah.
Krieger, I think, I think at times has clearly been the best character on the show, which is why he went from like minor character to
Yeah.
yeah. He's the Rafi of this show. We could not podcasting on the league though. So what else we got?
Mallory really wasn't used that
Yeah,
much
not much
either.
Mallory. I think it's disappointing because that's obviously such a great character.
Yeah, she's
I
a
guess the
really
other
good
good
character.
Mallory moment was she was drinking champagne with Cyril, and it's like
She was out of
who's
liquor.
celebrating? We're out of liquor. That's like classic Mallory line.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a quotable one if you're ever just drinking champagne, right? Like,
Yeah. We're out of liquor.
salad.
And then the thing about that is they sell liquor in the grocery stores in LA, which they don't. But
Oh,
no.
you're an expert on LA grocery
I
stores.
used to live out west. They don't
Oh,
sell
yeah,
they don't sell liquor in the grocery stores. They sell wine or
they're
beer.
yeah. We don't need to get into that, but yeah. What else we got here? I hope you brought enough painkillers to share with the class. No, I ate them all. And he's like, I lied. I got like 20 more at the end.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. There's this whole thing about them and dealing with the killing the Italian prime minister, which I don't even know if it was referencing something before in the show because I don't remember. I assume it wasn't.
Yeah.
But
No, it was. It was when he was in her hotel room.
oh, was
It
that
was
a
that
thing?
episode when he called Lana and Archer over claiming someone framed her
Okay,
for killing the prime minister,
so it
but
actually
actually
was a
she
thing.
did it and she just wanted them to get rid of the body.
Okay,
It
I
was a
guess,
thing.
I guess the good line from that one was uh, putting his dismembered body over four bureaus. Wait, four? I'm not schlepping to Staten
I'm
Island.
schlepping him to Staten Island.
Yeah,
That was a good one.
yeah. That might have been one of the top lines of the episode.
Yeah.
What else we got? Uh, double is stealing something that you already own. Is it double jeopardy? No. Everyone
No.
saying no to Archer.
Wait, is it double jeopardy?
Yeah. Uh, what else?
It might be all for the.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I don't know. Not too many memorable. I mean, we end the episode with Furlock Bones. Pam,
That was pretty.
you liked Furlock
Name is
Bones?
Furlock Bones. I thought it was funny because she laughed right afterwards. Because that's me telling like a line.
Are you Pam? Is that the character?
Sometimes, probably when she
I
has
feel
those
like
bear claws and she's like, "Arr."
I feel
Every
like you're
time she
Pam.
has a bear claw, she like growls at it before
Yeah,
she eats it.
I feel like that's definitely you.
Sometimes I'm Archer, sometimes I'm Pam.
I see that the AV Club review is up. They gave it a B plus. I would not.
I wouldn't give it
What would
that
you give
high.
it?
Not a B, maybe a B
A
or
B?
B minus
Yeah.
even,
I
but
think
not a B plus.
I'm C minus, but I don't know. I do think it's very mood dependent watching.
Dylan usually skews lower than others when giving.
I don't know if that's true.
I feel like generally we're you're a bit more critical than except in there's like the off occasion where everyone's like this sucked and Dylan's like I actually think it was one of the best
Well,
episodes of television ever.
just contrarian, yeah. I do think I'm like not gonna be an Archer. I'm not an Archer skeptic. Like I want to
Yeah.
enjoy it, so it's just I don't know. Looking over the AV,
I also think season openers are really tough though
yeah,
for any show.
yeah, and especially when you're just rebooting the concept, there's a lot to get out there. And a lot of my
Yeah.
problems with this were the shoehorned in plot, so I think it was kind of
Yeah.
inherent. William Hughes on the AV Club review says, I'm 99% sure that's Anna Grauer, aka the actress who plays Katya, as the fake Veronica Dean that tricks Archer and company into stealing the disc. Either that's a massive red herring or the show's really not done with the spy stuff quite yet. Are they bringing back Katya?
I actually did think about that for a hot second when she showed up. That like crossed my mind, which would
When
be
was the last
interesting.
time she was there? It was like only 2 seasons ago, I think, or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
I do like that character and that concept, but
yeah.
yeah, I don't know if it's the smartest thing to bring back these elements if we kind of want to separate here, but I don't know. They're definitely going for a longer arc, which because we set up the beginning thing.
This is similar to I think it was the beginning of season three when he's like off in Bermuda or wherever he is after she died quotation
Yeah,
marks. It's kind of similar to that, I guess, where it's like they set up the season long uh arc
yeah, and I'm interested to
thing,
see if the first scene was the end of the season. I assume not. I assume it'll just be like we catch up in a few episodes.
and then yeah,
Excited to see more of the detectives, especially J.K. Simmons detective. We
most
mentioned we
emotionless.
mentioned the rim shot recurring gag and like the gay porn names. Do we think that was well utilized? Because it went
Um,
on beyond the
I don't know because it kept going on, and I find jokes like that, like gay porn or porn name jokes, like get old fast for me. Like when people say a joke and they say, "Oh, like that's my porn name or whatever, it should be my porn name." Yeah, it's funny the first time, but if people keep doing it, like I just think that's a very like that gets old very fast.
at
That particular
the
joke.
at the end. Ray said he was Lance Vigorstaff.
Yeah, and, well, I did like when she was like, "I'm imagining a gay wizard."
Yeah,
He's like, I'm always am."
yeah.
Whatever he said.
And I think the show is great when it recurs gags like that all the time. But I do think like this is yeah, using gay porn names as your recurring gag is like pretty typical and
Yeah.
not the type of thing. I think it works when they're very funny. That thing that you're recurring a lot, and I don't think this was the best thing to recur over and
Well, it's
over.
even like the phrasing thing. Like,
Like
yeah,
phrasing's
it's
great, so
funny.
yeah, let's keep using it. Like
Yeah.
this is no phrasing, which is obviously like the best. Is that his
And now
phrasing?
we're asking, are we still doing phrasing? But
Yeah.
nobody answers.
Someone said that. Did they say phrasing last season? I think so. They're very careful with bringing it back. But is that the
Yeah.
best Archer joke? Phrasing?
I think that's the most iconic Archer joke.
Yeah, Danger Zone and phrasing. I think are the.
Yeah.
I think phrasing's better than Danger Zone for sure.
Yeah.
They jumped. I feel like they jumped the shark on Danger Zone, but would they like had a whole
I'm
episode?
still trying to figure out if they jumped the shark with Lana's strange baby.
Yeah, they might.
that
They
whole
might.
con that whole concept was weird to me.
Yeah, I don't. We'll see if they just ignore the baby. We'll see. Next week we have the handoff. At least the show will consistently air Thursday nights at 10 on FX. That'll be good. Um,
Yay.
and hopefully we'll be here to discuss Archer. Let us know your thoughts on this episode. Agree with us. What are your expectations for the season? You can leave a comment on YouTube on overlyanimated.com or Tumblr asks. And any further closing thoughts about the episode, Mel?
No, I think it's so hard. Like I feel so, and I do this with Game of Thrones a lot too. Like I usually hate the season openers to Game of Thrones, and then like when I go back and watch the whole season, I'm like, no, it was actually pretty good. I just think season premieres are tough for anyone, especially if you're in your 7th season.
Yeah.
It's
a
not
lot working against you at this point.
Yeah, you're not gonna have anywhere close to the best or even a memorable episode for your show. So
Yeah, I'm not judging the season yet. Just we'll see. The other cop/detective was Keegan Michael Key. By the way, we mentioned J.K. Simmons all the time, but we had Key of Key and Peele as the other cop.
I love Key and Peele.
Yes,
They have a really good Game of Thrones video.
I feel like whenever you bring up any topic, one of the most common responses can be like Key and Peele has like a good.
Key and Peele has a really good bit about.
Exactly. Yeah, so we'll be back next week for that. Looking forward to seeing where we go with this interesting reboot of Archer. You can find out everything about the podcast, overlyanimated.com. And give us all our social media links, give us feedback there. And this ad-free podcast is brought to you by our patrons. Thanks to, and you can support us at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to our patrons, Shayna, Mitch, Cordell, Beatrice, Nate, Andy, Jamie, Rachel, John, Ryan, and Catherine, aka Hannah, Fever, Mitch, Cordell, University, Beach Exchange, Nathan, Fillion, Buzz Lightyear, Man, and Rachel Rose, Johnny Bravo, Brian, and Cookie Cat. There you go.
Holy.
The ranks have increased, yes. So, and at the very least, Shayna watches Archer. We'll see if any other patrons watch.
Yeah.
In other news, Moonbeam City was officially not renewed for a second season. Comedy Central listed its renewals this week, and we covered Moonbeam City on the podcast. We were big fans of it, me and Delaney, and it's sad, but not unexpected considering Comedy Central ran off the last 2 episodes at like 3 a.m. So we expected the show.
That was like when Nickelodeon got rid of Danny Phantom.
Yeah. There's
then they.
Running off shows at 3 a.m. not a good sign for renewal. Okay, so we'll be back with more Archer next week, and let us know what you thought. See you guys next time. Bye.
Adios.